G'day everyone, Derek Best, Beacon Fight for Life. Well, what an absolute privilege it is, because today I have in the presence with me Mr. Jack LeCras. We won't say exactly how old you are, Jack. Will we say born 1st of September 1926?
Absolutely.
As I said, it's an absolute privilege to have Jack with me today. Fine gentleman. I'm lucky enough to get to spend a bit of time with him every week. We hang out a bit, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But Jack's kindly agreed to do an interview with me to talk about his amazing life, but also some of his ups and downs, and then we're going to finish on some why we spend so much time together, besides him being a great guy. So, Jack, it's fair to say, well, first of all, thank you, and thank you for your service. I don't know if I've ever said that to you before. But
Always a first time.
you served in the Navy at the ripe old age of 17. And it's true to say that out of the 6 Australians that were at the signing of the treaty in Japan in World War II, you're the only one surviving.
That's correct. Yep, the only one. Yep.
During that time, when you were there on that event, did you realise what was going on?
No. How I got on board was by invitation of the American Navy people. We delivered General Blamey and Rear Admiral Collins to the ship for the signing, and we would have just simply tootled off and stood off about 150 metres from the ship and wait for them to come back down the gangway. But the sailor said, go around to the stern, hook onto the barge there. When we got around there, there was a welcoming group, and they took us up through the ship, and we suddenly found ourselves actually straight above and within about 20 metres of MacArthur. MacArthur at that time was delivering his speech, and so we were privileged to stand there and watch it with 2,000 American sailors hanging off from every point of the ship that they could, so that they could see what was going on. And these are pictures that are available.
Yep.
We saw the Japanese start to sign, but then we had to go back to the motorboat to get off and stand off, so that when we saw the pair of them coming down the gangway, we could race in and pick them up as if nothing had ever happened.
Really?
We didn't tell them we'd been on board. It was only when we got back on board and the captain declared the rest of the day off and a beer ration for everybody, and that was when the three of us recounted our experience that we were in the one mess deck, recounted our experience. We were never questioned by the officers as to how the hell we got there, and we weren't going to tell them anyway. But it was. I was more in awe of this battleship, which was about 80,000 tons, and our destroyer is 3,000.
Wow.
So the difference was there. But,
Huge.
Huge.
So how long did you serve in the Navy, and are you still involved today?
Well, I was in 2 years wartime Navy, and then in 1950 the Naval Reserve was put back into place, and I joined then, and I stayed in the Naval Reserve until 1976, when they wrote me a letter and said, you're 50 years of age, you're too old, goodbye.
Just like that?
Just like that.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, that was a redundancy.
There was no email either, was it?
No. was a sign of the times. So,
Yep.
yeah, we during that term, that 25 years, I spent every Tuesday night in training down at Lewin Depot for 3 hours, and once a year I went into the Navy for a minimum of 2 weeks, sometimes 4 weeks, undergoing training or going onto ships and taking my part within the crew. So, yeah, that was an interest. My naval part was there, but then 1995 I was part of the formation of the Bataan Association in WA, and have retained. I became president in 1998, and I'm still president now because nobody else wants it.
That's because you're good at it, Jack.
No. There's only 3 of us left. two Korean veterans and myself. I don't know of any other Western Australian who was in the commissioning crew of the destroyer. Yeah.
So then you get back here after the World War II. In 1946 you arrive here, and then you work at the Olympics in 1956 in Melbourne. What did you do there?
Well, I transferred into the ABC in 1950, and I joined the ABC as I think the position was called Officer in Charge, Mail and Dispatch, which mostly meant that you licked postage stamps onto envelopes and took them up to the post office. But it was a clerical position with other duties. 1956, the ABC was a good organisation. It believed in giving every person an opportunity. So they advertised for people to go to Melbourne for the Olympics, be there for 3 months and work not in the programming side of presenters and that, but for the administration. So I applied for it in September. I went to Melbourne and I was there for 3 months, working to set up. We had 120 overseas commentators. We had to provide studios for them to record because television was only just starting. We had to have broadcasting positions in the grounds at the 23 sites. We had to service those sites. All the presenters would record the race or whatever it was they were watching, and then they'd come back into our studios and they'd edit them and then send them off, but we'd have to get them out there and get them back. So it was a massive organisation. Yeah. It was a good experience. 3 months, yeah. And the final part of it was that we were there to see the grand final in that year. And
Who was that?
Oh, that was Collingwood and some other team.
You're not into footy? I know.
No, not into footy, but there were 120,000 people on the ground. There were that many there that they allowed them to sit on the ground between the fence and the boundary line.
Yeah, and you were there?
Yeah. We had key positions because our main studios, the main offices were in the buildings overlooking the ground, so we had a box seat.
And no, it doesn't stop there. You held a senior position at the ABC. You started off as clerical, then before you left, where were you? What were you doing then?
Well, I was 1950 to 1956. It was decided the Commonwealth Games would be in Perth in 1962, and the City of Perth Council wanted the site where the ABC studios were in Supreme Court Gardens. And so there was a parliamentary committee set up to build a building for us in Adelaide Terrace, which would be the first ABC one building in the state. Every other state had a minimum of 7 or 8. So my position in that, by 1960, when we occupied the new premises, I'd gone up the list a bit. I was in charge of transferring 600 people from around Perth into the new buildings, and then looking after all the facilities and whatnot. It was a reasonable job. I had something like 30 odd people working for me, and that stayed that way until 74. And I went to Melbourne as what they called in those days a supervisor of administrative services, which in actual fact was there were 2,000 employees in Melbourne, and in the hierarchy there was the manager, the assistant manager, director of radio, director of television, director of engineering, director of news, and me. So I was sort of 7th on the ladder in 2,000 people. And I inherited 600 employees and 18 buildings to look after.
This is in Melbourne?
In Melbourne.
Yep.
In 1974.
And what was your budget?
26 million.
26 million in what,
1974.
Which was a lot of money. It's still a lot of money now. But
Oh, it was a huge amount in those days. Of course, a lot of it was taken up in the rents of buildings and what have you. But yes, I did have funds to play with.
yeah, absolutely. And you liked golf too back then.
Yeah.
So you went from Melbourne doing that, then they sent you up to the Commonwealth Games in 1982.
Yeah,
So briefly tell the story about what you had to do there.
Well, in the February, the manager that they'd appointed for the Commonwealth Games in Brisbane rang me and said, "I want you up here to be with us." And I said, "No, give it to somebody else. I'm getting too old. Just put somebody else in a position, but no, I don't want to come." And that was Ian McDonald, who did the Sunday morning radio through Australia sort of thing. Very, very great bloke. And that was all right. I thought no more about it until on a Thursday morning in August, he rang me and he said, "Good morning, Jack. I've just like to inform you that you are commencing duty up here at 9 o'clock on Monday morning." And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Yes." He said, "I've spoken to the general manager, Albert Manton, that we need you. I've spoken to your manager of Victoria, Titch Whiteley." And he said, "I've even spoken to your wife." And I said, "Do I have any options?" He said, "No." So I was appointed in September to go to Brisbane for the 1982 games, which were in November. Again, it was purely an administrative thing, but the bloke that they had appointed to it conveniently concealed that he was doing nothing all the time. And we were bringing in 120 commentators. Television was right there. We had something like 28 venues, and we had to service all this. And that was my job, to set up the offices for it, because this bloke had done nothing, to set up the transport system, to set up security system for everywhere, for all the studios and all the sites, to employ 100 drivers, to set up a mail and dispatch, printing, telephone system, you name it. That was what I had to do. So they...
And what budget did they give you to do that?
Unlimited.
Unlimited.
Unlimited. But I wasn't able to purchase any vehicles. I had to scrounge them. I was booked into a motel which was about 100 metres from the telephone exchange at the Gabba. We'd taken over 5 stories of that and put studios in. And I knew some of the staff that were already there because they'd been in 1956. And so we were working 7 days a week, 18 hours a day to get everything into place and into position. And yeah, it all happened. But I think the highlight of it was that when it was all over, we had 180 volunteers, and the Queensland government wanted to give them a garden party or a brunch on the Sunday morning. But everybody was booked to fly out on the Sunday afternoon. These volunteers were all housed in 12 motels. So we had to get them from the 12 motels to where the brunch was, and then from where the brunch was to the airport in the order of coming out of the motel into the brunch, transferring it, because they had all their luggage, had all these buses, transferring all the luggage out of bus A, because their flight was at 2 o'clock. So that luggage had to go into the 2 o'clock bus. So we had to shift 300 items of luggage to accommodate all this. And that was all very well. It was all very well. It went like clockwork. The buses picked the people up. We had them label all their luggage, and the staff were very, very good. They just went off, and me and my team of 3 blokes shifted all this luggage out of all these buses into the other buses, which had all been renumbered and told to change positions and everything. The only thing was that at 12 o'clock, there was this huge storm came through Brisbane and grounded all flights for 4 hours. So everybody got into the buses when it was over, and they said, "Where are we going?" We said, "Well, we're taking you into the Gabba, into the cricket club rooms, and the buses will be outside in the same order of flights and whatnot." And so we took all these people in. The Brisbane Cricket Club supplied all the food in the afternoon, and it wasn't until 8 o'clock that night that we cleared all these people. I mean, so we'd only started around about 5 o'clock in the morning, but to shift them all. But yeah, that was the highlight of the games, and that episode never ever appeared in any official report. Yeah, we got soaking wet carrying these suitcases between buses and buses. I said, imagine that there were 12 motels, 180 people. There would have been 15 buses, and you pick up the load from bus 1, you find the flippant thing was up in bus 15, so you stagger up and come back for another load. And everybody had at least 2 suitcases. Yeah,
But everyone had a good time.
yeah. They were all happy with. But that was the Brisbane Games. It went well. It was all our volunteers were told when we volunteered that when you went to Brisbane, you would get no overtime, You'd be paid the normal travel allowance and meal allowance. There'd be no overtime. And you'd be expected to work at least 60 hours a week. And everybody accepted it. And there was no problems with it. And as a Christmas present, the ABC suddenly came out and said, well, if anybody recorded the hours that they worked in your timesheets, please submit them, we'll pay the overtime, and we'll give every one of you 2 weeks extra leave.
Wow. Well done, ABC.
It was a reward, yeah. So that was good. That was the way they looked after their people. Yeah.
That's a great culture.
Good. Yeah.
Okay, Jack, I want to go back a little bit. Now, we've spoken about Jack and, the amazing achievements that you've made over that period of time, but you had a lovely lady in your life, the love of your life.
Yep.
And her name was Kath.
Yep.
I never had the honour of meeting her, but how long are you guys married for?
69 years and 50 weeks.
69 years and 50 weeks, 2 weeks short of 70 years. That's an amazing achievement.
Yes, she put up with me for that long.
She must have been very supportive.
Yeah. No, no, it was a good life. We actually married the boss's daughter. Not that it accounted for anything. He didn't have a fortune, and neither did she, and neither did I. No, we agreed as the girls start to get a bit older, when I say older, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, we simply said, well, these two are going to go their own way in life, so we have to make a life for ourselves in the future. And so we will do things together. And that was how it worked. I mean, so I'd come home with saying that, I've been transferred to Port Moresby for 4 weeks, and she'd say, what happens to me? And I said, you stay home. So there was agreement along the line on that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's like all couples, we had our arguments, and I think the only real thing that happened was that we'd come back from our honeymoon, we moved into a flat, we got there on the Saturday, and on Sunday morning I was out chopping wood, came back in, and she said, I have cooked scones for morning tea. And I picked a scone up, and there was no way I could get a knife through it. So I went out and got a tomahawk and walked back in with a tomahawk. And she said, what's that for? I said, to cut the scones. So she threw the whole plate at me and never made another scone in her life.
Just a subtle way of saying...
She never worked. I said to her when we got married, well, you don't have to go to work. And she said, well, and of course in those days, 1949, 1950, wives didn't go to work. Mm-hmm. So she set up her own life. In her spare time, she volunteered at schoolwork, teaching kids sewing and cookery and whatnot. She played tennis. She was a well-built lady, and she had a mean serve in tennis. She was good at golf, better than I was. And she made a very large circle of friends, and those friends really stayed with us right through until we moved in 74. And when we came back in 85, those friends regathered. And just as an aside, 1984, we started a Boxing Day party here at our place with 9 couples. And that continued until she passed away. And there are only now one other couple and myself out of the 18 still alive. But, yeah, they were friends. We just might have, a couple of them, we only saw them once every 12 months, but it was a tradition that we set up the Boxing Day.
Mm-hmm.
It was that. My family agreed with it. By 1990, in 2000, early 2000s, we started to have grandchildren. And Boxing Day, my daughter would put together a concert,
Mm-hmm.
which we'd hold on our back lawn to entertain the oldies. Those were the sort of things that you did in those days.
Mm.
And yeah, she was great, and she was instrumental in me joining Lions. But that's another story. But yeah, it's, when we moved to Melbourne in '74, we were in a unit in Toorak for 12 months, and which was very, very difficult because she had no friends and she didn't know anybody.
Mm.
I didn't have any friends. I didn't know anybody. So we made our own stuff, and then we built a house in Werribee, and we were there for 6 months. And she rang me one morning and said, "I've made it." "What do you mean you've made it?" She said, "I got spoken to." The person said hello to me in the street. And I said, "Well, who was it?" She said, "Oh." She saw me coming. I said, "Who was it?" She said, "It was the president of the Red Cross, and she asked me to join."
Well, that counts.
Yeah. So yeah, she was a great supporter, and through Lions, she made lots and lots of friends through Lions, not only WA but Australia-wide, international, because we went to conventions and.
Before we get on to the Lions,
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question. I know you shared it with me, and I just want you, if you don't mind sharing it with me, about when you lost your dear wife, Kath. How long ago was that?
6 years.
6 years. It must have been, or could only imagine it'd be traumatic after nearly 70 years together, losing someone that close to you. How did you get through that? Or how are you getting through that?
With great difficulty. The circumstances were that she took 2 seizures early in the morning, and so she went to hospital, and by the end of the day they said, "Well, we'll transfer her and keep her in and whatnot." That was on the Friday. On the following Wednesday, she had deteriorated. She had the use of her right arm and her right leg. She couldn't speak. She couldn't move. So the doctors pulled us aside and said, "Look, we'll keep her here for as long as you like, but do you think that she would like to be in this position where it affects the whole family as to their lives and the grandchildren and everybody else? And do you think that she would want to stay on. I said, don't worry about it. If you say yes to it, we will make sure that she's here. We'll make sure that she is transferred to a situation which will look after her. There'll be no expense. She'll be covered for the whole thing. But would she wish to remain as she is? How active a lady was she? She played golf and she played tennis and she was involved in this and involved in that, involved in everything else. So that was given to us on the Friday. On the Monday we made our decision, and on the Thursday she passed on. We said, well, we all agreed, the two girls, that she wouldn't want to be a burden to us in that state. To us, she wouldn't have been a burden because she was our wife and mother. But yeah, that was it. So yeah, well, following that, well, the next 3, 4, 5 months were not part of my. I have no idea. I just existed for that. It took me many months to come to grips with the fact if I walked down the street, I couldn't put my hand out and grab another hand. Or if I asked a question, there was no answer. And those were the things that I couldn't grasp. And I still do this day. I'll tell you, even today I went up to the shop and I just put my hand out, but there was nothing there. After all that time, it's memories come up like going out of fashion. You know, all the things that we did together, places we went to, that they don't disappear. And the thing is that the grandchildren too often say, well, how did Gran handle such and such? Oh, yeah, well, she gave me a clip over the ear and told me to get on with my business and sort of thing, you know. Coping, I still find it hard. As a matter of fact, when I drive along Whitford Avenue, going up to Gibson Avenue, every time I go past Pinaroo, I say, "G'day, Dale."
That's where she's resting.
Yeah. No, she was a great lady. So, yep.
So you did, again, you shared a story with me about after that had happened and how you maybe, or you considered suicide.
Yeah, well, that was 2 years ago. We used to share Christmas because the two girls were married, between the three and whatnot. But on this particular occasion, I went up to Lesmurdy to Susan and I stayed there on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, Boxing Day. Came home on the Monday, and the family, Diane's family, had come up on one day, so there were like 22 or 23 of us, less one. And on Christmas Day there was Susan's 17. Boxing Day they all came back again, and during the days I just kept on looking at the kids, the great grandkids who were ranged from 2 to 7, enjoying themselves. And a couple of them came up and said, "Where's Gran?" Which was hard to explain. And depression set in, and I wasn't I really wasn't in a good place at all. And so I was on Tuesday, on the day after Boxing Day, I got my car, drove down Lesmurdie Hill, and I certainly wasn't thinking at all that the world was just buzzing around me. And as I got to the barriers that protect you from going over the side, I suddenly decided that I wanted to join her. It was as simple as that. And as I got close to the barriers, all of a sudden somebody clicked into my brain and said, "Well, there are 3 things. You're going down around about 300 feet. What happens if you survive? What happens if there happens to be a house underneath and you crash through it and kill other people? And what's going to be the effect on your children?" And those 3 questions, I sort of found by then I was at the point where I had to either turn or go on. So I went on. I got to the bottom of the hill and pulled off into the side and sat there for around about an hour trying to work myself out and come to grips with it all. And so for the next month, whenever I went to Lesmurdie, I drove up through Kalamunda and came home through Kalamunda.
So you didn't go that track.
I wasn't game to go down Lesmurdie Hill. It was a funny feeling that there was that. If I ended all as the serenity, and I'll be with Kath.
So usually when I do these interviews, I do them thinking like for younger people wanting to end their life, early, and the reasons why they shouldn't do that. This example here is obviously you're at the later end of your life. You had a fantastic marriage of 7 years, the best part of 7 years. So if someone is out here watching this and they're in a similar situation as you, they've lived a full life, they've had lost their partner, wife or husband, what advice would you give them, if any, at this point to continue?
I have 11 great-grandchildren. Now, after that, I would like to see them grow up to young men and women. My eldest grandchild, Tom, turned 13. He said to his mother, "Do you realise that when I turn 18, Pa will be 100. He can take me into the tavern and buy me a drink." Now that one remark lives with me. That I'd love, if I'm able to, at 100, to take Tom and buy him a drink. It's as simple as that, isn't it? That's given me a target. That's given me
A purpose.
A purpose. So I get 1,000 other purposes for the things that I dream of and projects that I think of, and I like to see them through to fruition and whatnot. I've always been a, a dreamer, a doer, and a finisher. I dream of what I could do or get done, do it, and then sit back and say, I've done it.
A sense of achievement.
Yeah, there's a sense of achievement. There's no, I can't think of anything more than that. I'm being set targets by other people rather than myself, and sometimes I feel a sense of responsibility of responding to that. But at the same time, it's taken me 96 years to say no. Because people will look at me now when I say no. And they say, but you've never said no, you'll do it. I said, no, but I'm not going to do it. Major projects that I was asked to go to Brisbane 3 years ago to become part of a Commonwealth exhibition touring Australia. And I said, no. And the bloke said, but you've done it before, that's a piece of cake. And I said, yeah, 1982 and things are different now. No.
Well, thank you for sharing that part of your story with me, Jack. I really appreciate it. So we can lighten it up a little bit and we've finished on a positive. I mean, you touched on it before with Kath and the Lions. Now, that's how we met. I'm the president of the Lions Club of Whitford, which is my title, but you're the boss.
No,
which I don't mind because you do. I love learning from you.
I offer advice. I offer advice.
Which always we end up doing, but it's fantastic because I love learning from you, Jack. So that's why I'm there. I'm like a sponge. Just briefly, I know we could sit here and talk about Lions all night, but what does being a Lion? What does being a Lion mean to you?
Well, first of all, I was invited to be a Lion. Two members of the Werribee Lions Club come to me one night, sat down and simply asked me to be a Lion. And in the town of Werribee, which was a very parochial, singular, whatever country town that you would ever think of, to be asked to be a member of the Lions Club of Werribee was an honour. It was an honour. And so I went along and I suddenly found myself in amongst, in those days, 1978, they had 54 members. Attendance was around about 48 or 50. It was a big thing. And their projects were based on providing community service for whatever. And it was a big club, so there were multitudes of projects going on all at the same time. It was hard to keep track with them, and it certainly it sort of gripped me because I'd just completed 25 years in the Naval Reserve, looking for something to do, but I suddenly found that there was a niche for me that I could provide in planning. My life was a planner. I could sit down and come up with a project and simply present it, and everybody say, "How the hell did you think of that?" Sort of thing. But it gave me a purpose, and it's been that way all the way through. I've never looked back since I've been a member of Lions. I've always looked to over the horizon. There is somebody over there that I can do something for. But I can't do it by myself. I've got to have other people behind me. Sort of two examples. In Werribee, we were looking for a major fundraiser, and everybody's racking their brains and they're coming up with tea parties, and God knows, toffee apple sales and whatnot. Werribee, you've got to realise, had a railway line and the main street and a secondary main street. But this main street went over the railway line to go out to the suburbs, and on this end went out over the main line to go out here. So every time a train came through, all the traffic in the street was all blocked up. So I said, well, if we want some cash, real cash. Yeah. I said, all right, we'll have a market. What sort of a market? I said, a market. We'll have a market. And we'll shut off the main street. No, you can't do that. And I said, well, that's the first objection. Why can't we? Oh, and we had the sergeant of police, the sergeant in charge of Werribee Station, with us, and he said, why would you want to shut off the street? And I said, to put stalls all the way along it. Oh, he said, that's not a bad idea, because we could divert the traffic around the parallel road. And I said, okay, we'll take up the street that goes to the railway station, and we'll go right around to the railway line. And they said, where are you getting the stalls from? And I said, oh, we just advertise. We'll get people. We'll get 100 stalls for the day. Don't be stupid, you won't get 100 stalls. I said, well, you know, how many organisations are there in Werribee? And the sergeant said, to our last counting, there were 45 different groups. And I said, well, those 45 groups, they want money. So we went ahead with this and advertised. The police put it out in there. In those days, the police were very cooperative.
The police were very what?
Cooperative.
Cooperative.
And all the businesses put out brochures, and God knows. There was publicity, free publicity. I hadn't spent a penny. And all of a sudden on this Saturday morning at 9 o'clock we opened the market, and both sides of this side street, all the main street down here, was chock-a-block with stalls. By 10 o'clock the street was chock-a-block with people. And we were running a chocolate wheel, and we couldn't spin it fast enough. We were making $10 every throw, and we were doing a round every 2 minutes, and money was just pouring in everywhere. Then people were buying. It was the first market that had ever been held in Werribee. Everybody did. So all of a sudden, Mark, the sergeant, came to me and he said, we're concerned. Oh, bloody hell are you concerned about? Look at all this. He said, as a matter of fact, he said, we've rung Footscray. Yeah, why have you rung Footscray? They're sending out 10 plainclothesmen. Why? He said, well, some of our people have been up watching the people come in on the rail, and there's been a few spivs and pickpockets and a few people we don't like. Oh, all right. And he said, and not only that, we're concerned at how much money is in the place. So I said, oh, all right, okay, off you go. So they said, half an hour later, everybody arrived. And in the meantime, the cops had gone around and questioned, what do you think your takings are? What do you think your takings are? And he came to me and he said, I told you. And I said, what? He said, it's of great concern to us. And I said, why? He said, do you realise that they've taken $40,000 in 3 hours in this street? And I said, oh, isn't that nice? Yeah, we've called for reinforcements. They had 20 coppers in plain clothes to make sure that these
Everyone behaved.
Grundies from Melbourne who'd got the word got out, and because the vice squad was in vogue in those days, so they were standing on the station. I said, "Bloke, come on, get back on the train. Get back on the train. You're not welcome."
That's how it worked. That's how it worked in those days.
Yeah, so that was one. Then we the Werribee Park. Werribee Park was a huge estate owned by one bloke, and the Werribee Park mansion had 170 bedrooms.
170 bedrooms.
Bedrooms in this mansion. It was huge. And it had been used by the Catholic group as a monastery and whatnot, and then it became vacant. And so the state government took it over and they were going to sell it. And a 12-year-old girl from Werribee wrote to the Premier of the day, can't think of his name, it escapes me, and said, "Why are you selling it? Why can't it be restored and all the grounds opened up for a park?"
A 12-year-old girl.
A 12-year-old girl
Wrote that.
wrote that, and blow me down, that was what happened. So they spent countless millions in restoring the mansion to its original state. They peeled the layers of paint off until they got back to the original and found the original and whatnot. Got all the bills of lading for all the furniture that came out from England and everything. And then they said, "What are we going to do with it?" So we had a golf course in Werribee, which was half in the middle of the race course and the other half out in the parking area. So we said, "Well, we'd like to build a golf course down there." So they gave us the land for a golf course, and then said, "How much do you want to build the course?"
This is the Lions. They gave
State government.
The state government gave the Lions
That's
Club of Werribee
The Lions are doing this. Yeah,
the land to build a golf course.
yeah. So the Lions said, "Give us the land, we'll build a golf course and whatnot." So they gave us the golf course. So we built the golf course, and our clubhouse was the mansion. And we had very large rooms for our club rooms, and I think the change room was about 15 rooms and whatnot. Anyway, so then they decided that when we got a clubhouse and moved out, that they would turn it into what is now Werribee Park Zoo.
It's the zoo.
The zoo, yeah, outside zoo. So that was all right. In front of the mansion was like a football oval, grassed area. And I said to the mob one night, Lions were in we had our rooms in the mansion, and I said, "Hey, why don't we have a concert on the grass?" "What do you mean a concert on the grass?" And I said, well, I don't know, I'm teeing with this idea, a concert on the grass, yeah, I do. All right, why don't we go for country music festival? "Why would you go to for that?" I said, "Well, there's Tamworth is the music festival centre of Australia. Why can't we be number 2 to start off with?" So I said, "Look, you've got the venue. The venue could seat, sitting on the grass, 20,000 people, and It was bigger than the Optus Stadium. And I said, what are you going to do? I said, I don't know. So, of course, I went back to my mates at the ABC, into the presentation area, and sort of said, look, I'm thinking of the Country Music Festival at Werribee. Oh, what do you want? And I said, I just want names. I just want that. And they said, well, go to Charlie. And Charlie said, yeah, I can do that for you. I'll charge you $5,000 and I'll give you 4 hours continuous entertainment of country music. Top-notch artists. He said, straight up to Tamworth, they're looking for it. And he said, I said, okay. So that's what started it. It was horrendous. It was horrendous. There's one road from Werribee out to the mansion. Just one road. Not even 2 lanes. Just gravel on the sides. How do we advertise it? And the promoter said, don't worry about that. It's country music. He said, every truckie, I'll guarantee you that every truckie in Australia will know about the Werribee Festival within 2 weeks. And they will talk amongst themselves and they'll get all the people. Oh, all right, okay. So then we called the police in and said, do you want to do this? And called in the railway department and said, well, look, we're likely to have 20,000 people coming in by steam train in those days.
Steam train.
Steam trains. And we need to get these people off the steam train by buses down here and everything else. So we had a committee of about 6 of us. And so we decided that, there would be hundreds and hundreds of vehicles. So, okay, we'd charge $20 per vehicle for 6 people. A vehicle with 6 people in it. Any more over 6, like combi vans of hippies, it'd be $5 per person. So the first year we had all this, and the trains started to come in, and the coppers were very cooperative. They stood along the platform, and as they're watching the people coming by, get back on the train, get back on the train. We don't want you here, So the buses would come out. They'd have police escort. These buses would come out, 4 buses at a time. They'd roll right through, push the people over. We turned that into a one-way road because there was a road right around the Werribee South, so we could make that one way and bring all the buses in and whatnot. And we had a counting house in the mansion, and we said, well, we need a stage. And the bloke, McLaughlin, he said, oh, that's all right. So he rings Lindsay Fox and said, we want a stage. Oh, all right. So they brought out 2 taut-liner trailers, put them alongside each other, got a stage. All we had to do was build a set of steps for either end. Stage. Yeah. So we set the gates up and we're collecting this money. And we had little, pissy little bags like this, money bags.
A bum bag.
Bum bags. And the money was just flowing in. Oh, Christ. Hey, Tom, come over here. Into a bucket. Into a bucket. And off he'd go. He'd have about 15 buckets full of money. And we had this counting house. They had about 10 blokes counting and sorting this money and counting it out. And, so on the first one, we took something like $40,000 expenses were about 8,000. So that was great. So then the promoter went to water, and he said, "Oh, this is good stuff. This is good stuff." So he upped the ante, and he said, "Yeah, well, next year it'll be 10,000." I said, "Oh, no. So I went to the ABC, and there was Brian May and the ABC show band. And I knew Brian, and I said, "How'd you like to perform for a charity for an afternoon, 3-hour concert? Where?" And I said, "Werribee Park." "Where the bloody hell's that?" And "Yeah, all right." And I said, "I'm not paying anything." And he said, "Oh, about the musos?" And I said, "Oh, I'll give him a cup of tea, sandwich for during the break and whatnot." "Yeah, all right." And he said, 3 hours of music, that's not much. He said, "How about 4 hours?" Said, "All right, 4 hours." So the second one, it was, it was frightening. There were just so many people. The trains coming in were packed. They put on extra trains for us, and steamers with 6 carriages, and we had to hack off and get school buses to help us to shift the crowd and everything and whatnot. And we had big canvas bags rather than buckets. We had counting machines instead of people, and we had a paddy wagon driven by the sergeant and his offsider, who transported all the cash into Werribee, into the ANZ bank, and the bank manager was standing there with his key to open the door to put it all into the safe. We didn't have to count it. The staff counted it the following day. It took them 2 days to count the
money.
Count the money, yeah. Oh, it was unbelievable.
So to answer my question,
Yeah.
what does being a lion mean to you after those 2 amazing stories?
We as an organisation can hold our heads up high in providing a service, top class service to the community where and when they need it. It's as simple as that. You know, that's always my end. You know, even the simple thing like a mitre 10. The person walks away with a sausage in their hand and they smile at you.
So you'd recommend that someone watching this would join the Lions Club?
Oh, if you don't, I'll kill you.
It's a bit harsh, Jack.
No. Look, years ago in our own club, I was recognised as being a professional lion.
Mm-hmm.
My heart was in it. Kath absolutely, completely and utterly supported me. She knew as much about lions and the Constitution and the rules and everything, much more even than members. And she was known through the top half of Western Australia. And she was. She used to, when we went to St. Louis to be inducted as district governor, we met some lions from the Mississippi district, and they gave her a teddy bear about this one. It was called Raw Bear, R-O-A-R, Raw Bear. And they said, we want you to take it on your travels in the next 12 months, and we'd like you to take an exercise book with you and get autographs of people that have said, give a roar. So we'd go to a club and we'd be introduced, and introduce me and Kath. And the president would say, "Excuse me, Mr. President, I have a guest with me." And bend down. Give a roar. This bear, about this big. We put a jacket on it, we dressed it with all the badges of all the clubs and everything. We finished up with 2,500 autographs, which included airline pilots, bus drivers, general managers of mines, and Argyle, Rio Tinto, and all those, because we went right through the north. Yeah, and that was her part. You know. Here's my guest, give her all. And it became a thing, you know, because we visited 73 clubs in 12 months.
Kept you busy.
Yeah. Oh, that was without all the odds like being invited to afternoon tea at Gin Gin or receiving the debutantes at Gamelling, or being at the Blessing of the Fleet at Jurien Bay. All those sorts of things. They don't happen these days, but in those days, that was when you were able to push lions out there. Yeah. They still have the name. Yeah.
All right,
sorry,
Jack. Well,
sidetracked.
No, not at all, mate. I enjoyed listening to it. I enjoyed hanging out with you, Jack, so thank you for taking the time to tell me your story. I really appreciate it. And my name's Derek Best, Beacon Fight for Life. Make sure you take the time to smile to me.
Aren't you going to ask me how I've lived for so long?
The secret to longevity. What's the secret to longevity, Jack?
Secret to longevity. A glass of wine. Never smoked. Didn't know what bad women were because I had another woman in my life. But my GP is my bloke. Through thick and thin of all the knee replacements and golden staph infections and everything, even though I've been incapable physically, keep your brain going and everything else will follow. And
You got a better memory than me.
and just recently, of course, I had the little episode back a while back. Yes, I was really down over that period. But my body was saying, I want to do this, but my brain kept on saying, no, you're not up to it. And it took about 3 weeks before the body said, I want to do this, and the brain said, yeah, let's get on with it. It's as simple as that. No,
So you put it down to a glass of wine a night. No, I'm kidding.
well, this might be the third one. Activity. I'm not one for exercise. I don't go swimming. I don't go running. I don't ride a bike. I don't ride horses. I use my car like it's a bicycle.
Drive up the footpath.
I drive up the footpath. If I want to go to the shop, I get into the car and drive. If I go to Anzac Day, I'll be in a wheelchair but walk past the shooting base. But
Well, you don't actually need a wheelchair. It's just
no.
and
The GP said to me,
works better when you've got the feet.
yeah,
foot pads.
absolutely. Yeah, the GP said to me, you've got to start walking 10 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the afternoon. I said, no. He said, yes. Okay. So I thought, well, I've got to go walking. I suppose I've got to have suitable footwear. So I went to Rebel and said to the bloke, I want a pair of walking shoes. And he said, $250. And I said, I've only got to walk for 6 weeks. I don't want gold. And he said, well, you don't want to buy them here. He goes, there's a shop down the end of the corridor, go down there. So I went down the end of the corridor and I bought this pair of $39 walking shoes. I walked from here to the Creaney school and took them off and walked back barefoot.
That's what you get for $39.
That's what you get for $39. And,
Did you go back to Rebel and get the $250 pair?
so I told the GP, and he said, that's no good. And I suddenly thought, oh, hang on. I got a pair of walkers in the wardrobe. Yeah, okay, right, I'll start walking tomorrow. So I go up through the bush, put these walkers on, and I got about 100 metres in. I'm going flap, 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 and I'm thinking, what the hell's this? I don't know, flap, flop, flip, flap, flop, flip. So I turned around, came back. The soles had fallen off because they'd been in the wardrobe for 3 years and they dried out. So I don't exercise. I get enough exercise.
You wear out too many shirts.
But I got a workshop out there and I got a workshop in the garage.
Yeah.
And I've split that so that if I'm doing something there, to get my tools, I have to walk from there to there, backwards and forwards. All of that. That's my exercise.
So the secret to long life, you're very active. You're still very active. You do a lot of work.
Yes.
You do a lot of work. You do a lot of thinking too.
Yeah,
You can rattle off names from the 50s
yeah,
if you sit there and think about it.
yeah. Well, I plan this year. I will have planned 6 commemorative services
That you're going to
between now and Christmas.
Yeah.
And including the Anzac Day dawn service. They're all major. They might only attract 200 people, but it doesn't matter whether you attract 200 or 5,000. It's still the work that's there. You know. And I must say that because of Lions, my task is made just so much easier because there are just so many people that I've met who are just simply so willing to contribute and say, what do you want? And that's what I put my success outside of Lions, to Lions. Yeah. Okay, I got the OAM, but I put that mainly to Lions.
What's OAM stand for?
Order of Australia medal. Yeah, I got that in 2012. That's very a cherished one. Yeah, in Lions I've got so many awards. I've forgotten how many there are. I ran out of page on the page. But going to schools and making speeches to 500 children on Anzac Day and what it means and what have you. Yeah.
When you at those ceremonies at Anzac Day, does it take you back there to the war?
Yeah. That's the one. Well, they keep on saying that it's a day for respect, reflection. Yeah, I close my eyes. I can go back to Flinders Naval Depot. I can go back to my training in Sydney. I can go back to joining the ship. I can go back to the Missouri. I can go back to picking up POWs. My memory is good. Sometimes I wish I wasn't there, but it's in your makeup. So you look at it and think how lucky I am, as against a million others who were unlucky and never came home. I was lucky. The only thing that affected me was gunfire and ruined my ears. But someone, physically, apart from 4 knee replacements, I'm okay.
4 knee replacements?
Yeah.
What are your horse?
Just about. Just about. Yeah.
All right, Jack. Thank you, mate. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Oh, if they help to you, that's good. Yeah. I don't mind that.